Last night I went and finished Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare, and I have like quite a few bones to pick with it, and this video is really not planned. Obviously my setup is not the way I intend it usually. I wasn't intending on making this video, but I'm like irritated, so I'm going to talk about it. Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella, and like I said, I'm going to be discussing Chain of Iron. Hopefully not for too long, but there were a couple things that really irritated me about this book, and I've kind of noticed it through my reading experience, but it really was exacerbated when completing the story and feeling like I wasted my time. I don't feel like holding this book up for the whole duration of this, so I'm just going to flick a thing on the screen. Obviously this is going to be filled with spoilers because there's no way I can navigate number 20 in this series. Feels ridiculous that I feel the need to quantify this, but I just don't want a stan up in my mentions getting pissed that I didn't like this book. But I've been reading Cassandra Clare books since I was 12, 13. I'm now 24 years old. I feel like I get to have an opinion on it. Like, don't try to come for me. It's fine if you loved it. I'm going to explain why I was disappointed by it, and leave me alone. The first time I tried filming this, it got interrupted and then subsequently corrupted. So I'm kind of irritated, but it did help me work through some of the thoughts because, again, unplanned. I didn't write shit down. This video could be a disaster, and honestly, we'll see if this makes the light of day. If you're interested in my thoughts on Chain of Iron, I, like a month ago now, posted a video kind of saying where I'm at on my thoughts of Chain of Iron and how I was really looking forward, Chain of Gold, and how I was really looking forward to Chain of Iron. I mentioned that I thought there was really great setup for this book to be gold. I thought that this really had the opportunity to be so great. I really only now read these books for the characters, their interactions, and like angstiness. I don't care about the plots. I don't really care about what's going on in like Demon Land. I just want good interactions from the characters. But that being said, I also don't want to read 650 plus pages of fluff, of something that doesn't further the story really at all. I kind of found it irritating that we were almost exactly in the same position as we were from Chain of Gold to Chain of Iron. This book just utterly felt like setup and filler so we can get to the third one where things are going to get resolved. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I think the editing process was definitely flubbed. There is so much filler, so much stuff that just wasn't needed, and the plot doesn't really balance this stuff out. I honestly was fine and really enjoying reading about James and Cordelia and them navigating a marriage of convenience, but also obviously being in love with one another. And those quiet interactions were some of my favorite parts of the novel. I just don't exactly understand the point of the story as a whole. I think it honestly seems like Cassandra Clare knew where she needed the story to end, so she just wrote some stuff and went sort of in a weird winding way to get to the ending where we needed to be. Frankly, I don't think there was a lot of character growth. A lot of the characters are still in the same position that they were in the first one. I would argue that maybe Thomas and Alistair are the ones that have shown the most growth. Cordelia is still the same. She's kind of suffering like a crisis of conscience for making a poor decision at the end of this. So that, I think, is interesting fodder for the final book. But she just spends her time in love with James. James is a character I finally figured out why I feel so ambivalent towards him. And I think it was a mistaken choice in Chain of Gold to explain so quickly to us that he is enchanted, because as a reader, you're just waiting and waiting for the time when that goddamn bracelet comes off, because we all know that he's in love with Cordelia. It's just not a fun reading experience when you're reading more than the full length of one book to get that fucking bracelet off for her to finally be gone. I understand that's meant to be the angsty separate stuff, but like, I don't know. It just didn't feel like enough. I think Matthew shows a little bit of growth in opening up to Cordelia about his past and what he's done. You know what? Maybe this is one of my biggest sticking points with the story as well, is this just seems like a rip-off, direct copy of the Infernal Devices, literally a generation ago. And also, it pales in comparison. It is a knockoff version. I don't at all feel any chemistry between Matthew and Cordelia as a couple. Cassandra Clare has said that she's going to be doing something that she's never done with this love triangle, and frankly, this doesn't seem like a triangle. And one of the biggest problems I've also had with this is the relationship between James and Matthew. We are constantly told that they love each other, they're parabatai, that they'll die for one another. We never see why they love one another at all. They're just, their families have been friends, so they're friends. They basically spend the whole book hating one another and getting pissed at one another for a relationship that is literally established to be the most sacred relationship in the Shadowhunter world. It's supposed to be more than your spouse, than like your siblings and your parents. This bond is supposed to be so strong. I don't understand. I just don't. It feels like there's probably going to be an explanation for it in the next book, but it's not a fun reading experience. And that's what I go to these books to do. I want to have fun. I want to see these characters like pine over one another, but like it just feels forced, or like it's being done deliberately to keep them apart, not like an actual natural thing, and it's really irritating. I can't get over how many plot points are directly repeated from different versions and different trilogies we've seen. Almost all the characters that are introduced to these characters we've seen before, and the ones that we haven't seen that are new are immediately killed off. That's the father, the Italian girl, like they're killed, but we see Lilith, who we see in the second half of the Mortal Instruments. There's Malcolm Fade again, who we see and becomes one of the main villains in TDA. Like, what's the point? What is the point? There's nothing new. I would say the plot feels super reminiscent from just the fucking past book. Nothing new is brought to the table, and it's just drawn out. I think this book maybe should have been 150, 200 pages shorter. So weird, because I liked the quieter moments of here, but then what we try to introduce in terms of plot just was beyond lacking. Frankly, I didn't even care so much for Cordelia and James's like romantic feelings and interactions, because we've already known since the first book that they are both in love with each other and have been for a long time, and that stupid fucking bracelet is the thing that's separating him. At one point in time, I really thought that the bracelet was going to carry over until the final thing, and I just wasn't having it. I think the romance between Lucy and Jesse is weird, to be honest. Not because he's a ghost, but also that's, yeah, sure. Okay, fine, you're in love with a ghost. I don't see why they would, like, why Lucy would be so gung-ho on him to commit, like, a sacrilegious thing. Like, you're dealing with necromancy, girl. Also, I think it's because Lucy reads incredibly young. It just seems ridiculous that this ghost who's seen her grown up but is stuck at whatever age he's at would be interested in her. There's something about it that seems a little bit off. Also, What is it with Cassandra Clare and her incest plot lines, please? And this is coming from an OG fan of the Mortal Instruments trilogy. I was obsessed with that trilogy. I was dying for Clary and Jace, although I would like to defend young me because I had to have a friend spoil the trilogy for me to read it because I was like, excuse me, they are not brother and sister, this is gross. And because I knew that, I was on board with shipping them. What the fuck though? We really are gonna have another sort of, not really incestuous plotline, but Tatiana's just like, yeah, you can seduce your brother. I don't care that they're adopted, that's gross. You'd think she'd know it by now, really, truly. Like, you're making fun of yourself at this point. Come on. I don't know. Ultimately, I just feel let down. I don't have a high bar for these books. I don't expect a lot from these books. I just want them to be fun romps. But I also don't want the book to feel phoned in. I don't know if it's because Cassandra Clare is so famous and popular and her fandom is so huge that they don't want to give her notes on the edit and she just goes for it. But somewhere, someone needs to say, hey, let's trim this down a bit. Let's fix this up a bit. Let's make some things clearer. Let's, I don't know, introduce the plot before 150 pages in. I'm kind of interested now to go back and read like the original stuff. I haven't reread it in years because a lot of the stuff that seems introduced later on sort of undercuts some of the stuff originally established in the original trilogy. So funny that we constantly are told like this ruling body is so harsh and they're so terrible and they treat everyone awfully. But again, these teens can get away with literal murder. And also, we have a magic sword that can make people tell the truth, but we don't use it because that would make the plot too convenient. But also, wouldn't that make a lot more strife? Get the Clave pissed. Maybe if the Clave actually was forced to do something, you have Charlotte forcing to imprison like her child or her nephew or something like that. Like, make a little bit more emotional stakes in this. Maybe it would have been better. And I also think just having a series sandwiched between two in the timeline is really hard to write. Like, this is not an easy thing to do writing when we have an established timeline going forward. We've already gone to the past and now we're a generation from there. There's a lot of navigating that's really hard to do, and like, to give her some credit, that's not an easy thing to do. I just don't think it was navigated that well, unfortunately. And I'm bummed. Anyway, I think I'm giving this like 2 stars, not even 2.5, like 2 stars. I'm let down by it. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Chain of Gold, Iron. God, I'm gonna keep screwing up these names. If you liked it, maybe tell me why. And if you didn't, let's commiserate in the comments because I'm sad. I really wanted to like it, and it's honestly a bummer at this point. But thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Bye.